Blog Talk Radio.
The motherfucking saga continues.
Oh, y'all believe in the real gangster shit. Cause when it comes to the real niggas, it makes the shit that much harder to deal with. Yo, what's up, world? It's badass thuggin' like I usually do. And you better turn it up, bust some speakers out, cause we off the motherfucking cuff. You dig how we do it? Dog Pound Gangsters 2000 and beyond. Black.
Yeah. This Cassidy, the hustler. And right now, you listening to the Guillotine. Show them the respect they deserve, man. Off the cut radio, man. Y'all already know how they doing it, man. I need y'all to stay tuned. They've been doing it for years, so show them the respect they deserve. And you heard it out of bars, mouth. Easy.
Yeah. Just keep it moving like this. Yo, this your boy Rampage. You're not rocking with the best. With Off the Cuff Radio. Classic. History. Fix your face to all you haters. We off the cuff, baby.
Man, don't change that down. This your player partner, the legendary Cocaine. And you're tuned in live to Off the Cuff Radio. Better not touch that down. Wigglin'.
Tuned in to Off the Cuff Radio.
Bernie Dollars, the Queen of Trap, representing Crenshaw, and you are now tuned in with Off the Cuff Radio. What's up? What's up, y'all? This is Miss Irresistible, giving a shout out to the live show on Friday nights, Off the Cuff Radio, and I'm live from the 704. Make sure y'all tune in for the blazing hot music.
What it is, what it ain't, what it do. Chill from that original lynch mob. And Off the Cuff Radio is always where it's at on Friday nights. West, y'all.
Make $1 million cash for you flatline. Make a master plan, watch it backfire. Burn it all down and collect the ashes. Build it back, respect your passion. Witnessing some shit that you shouldn't see. Whisper to yourself what you wouldn't be. Victim to the block where your mama moved. Now your mind state is I'ma do what I gotta do. It's really quite logical. If you was me, you wouldn't shoot at them if they just shot at you. No trust funds, but my daughter do. First generation out of store with loot. My first record deal probably saved my life. So shout out to my nigga Draws and Johnny Shites. My road dog doing 12 now. Trying to turn this shit to heaven cause we hellbound. Make $1 million cash for you flatline. Make a master plan, watch it backfire. Burn it all down and collect the ashes. Build it back, respect your passion. Hard for y'all to fathom that we came from that. Sitting in the spot we was shaving crack. Navy blue chucks, my Mercedes black. Gave it all I got, then it gave it back. 30 niggas grinding on the same street. 1,000 niggas dead from the same beef. Money to be made, but it get risky. Inside job if it look fishy. Niggas playing foul, try to play it down. Say that they gon' kill him if he stay around. Say that they gon' book him, they just need a witness. Me, I'm trying to make an exit, all this politicking. Stop my mind drifting. Time ticking, death is in the air. I'm trying to bound over my visit. Shit rough, still ride with it. Rhyme different, that's how I did it. You should. Make $1 million cash for you flatline. Make a master plan, watch it backfire. Burn it all down and collect the ashes. Build it back, respect your passion.
What it do, man? This is episode 412, and you are now tuned in for an exclusive episode of Off the Cuff Radio, coming at y'all with the Monday Night Madness. I'm your host, King Eric the Great, and this show is sponsored by Buddy Boy Entertainment, Core Financial, Jesse Boutique, the Fleetwood and the Cot Pickers, And I got my host T-Match with the facts in the building.
What it do, what it do. It's another Monday Night Magnificence of OTC up in the building. This is the place to be. I am T-Max. Shout out to our co-host in spirit, a lot of Sandman and Lady Chinchilla. And King, this is a very, very, very special show tonight. Because one thing about it in hip-hop music, you have your artists, you have your producers, and then you have the biographers / authors, writers, to tell their stories, whether in magazines or in actual books. Our guest tonight is a living legend in the literature world. This man was part of Vibe magazine. This was Quincy Jones's baby when he wanted to take music to the next level in journalism. This man is, he's a legend. I mean, when you look at it, a little bit of his credentials. At age 26, he was the University of Chicago editor-in-chief of editor-in-chief of Art and Antiques magazine, grad of University of Chicago, editorial director of Vibe Books. Also has worked at the BET Network for digital content creation, and also Complex Music and Mass Appeal Records. This man's accolades are too many to mention. He's worked with so many people over the years. We are so honored. We are so privileged. And also, this man also wrote the late, great Nipsey Hussle's biography, The Marathon Don't Stop, The Life and Times of Nipsey Hussle. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, the incomparable, incomparable, incredible Robert J. Kenner. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you for that illustrious intro. I will just try my best to, live up to all of that. But I have to tell you, Off the Cuff Radio, I am standing in the Bronx right now. KRS-One is destroying the stage right now. I just had the chance to watch. Yes. Slick Rick, the Ruler, just came off stage. It's a celebration of hip-hop going on right now. Senator Chuck Schumer is in the building right now, walking around with a proclamation that he just passed stating that August 11th, 1973, or August 11th every year now will be official hip-hop day in the state of New York. So it's a crazy day, and now I'm stepping out of that jam to speak with you. So much respect to everybody that's tuning in to Off the Cuff Radio.
Man,
definitely appreciate you, man.
Have you? Yes. Welcome.
Are you listening? From one journalist for one background there. Yeah, from one journalist to another, man.
Yes, well, we out here just documenting a culture that has shaken the earth and continues to do so, and I have goosebumps right now. I was just like watching KRS-One freestyle in the Bronx, talking about what the real hip hop, the essence of this art form and this culture is about. And he's still on stage, but I said it's 9:00 New York time, 6:00 LA time. We gotta make this happen with Off the Cuff Radio. So here we are, live and living. And who told you to play that record, that Respect Your Passion? That is.
Oh man, it's just we've been following of Nipsey Hussle. Man, I'm gonna tell you this, man. We've been following the Nipsey Hussle's movement going back to probably 2009. Matter of fact, if people go back to the first show we did, we ended the show with Face the World, which was produced by Ninth Wonder. So we've been following this movement for a minute.
Well, yeah, that was a record. That record is only for the heads because that's not on any tape or anything. Bink produced it.
And shout out to Bink.
Maybe he collected it on one of his.
Yeah, shout out to Bink representing Hampton Roads, Virginia. 2 Up, 2 Down, where I reside. One of the most underrated and underappreciated producers in the game today.
That's 100% true. And I spoke with Bink. I sent him a copy of the book, The Marathon Don't.
Man, yeah. I mean, look, the book's making its rounds, Rob. And one thing about journalism, especially in the capacity of what you do, because it's one thing to write. It's another thing when you are entrusted to be the curator of somebody's life. Tragically, Nipsey's was cut, short. He was taken from us way too soon. But obviously, you were the guy. I mean, when you write an autobiography, you're all access. You're around this man. You're talking to all the people. We can't speak on Nipsey without shouting out the rest of the All Money and crew, man. I mean, we got to shout out Killer Twan. We got to shout out Jay Stone, Pat Man the Gunman. Cuzzy Capone, of course. I mean, Mike and Keys. Everybody, the whole '60s. All the way out to Crenshaw, Florence, Normandy, everybody, man. I mean, he touched so many. And like King said, we've been following Nip for, so many years. Of course, you and me talked on IG, and I sent you some of the stuff I had. I didn't even send you the picture from, I think it was 2003 in XXL when they first profiled Nip. And this is before Nip was, like, really even out there like that. But, I mean, he, this is going back to the Bullets Ain't Got No Names, mixtapes and all of that. I mean, God, I mean, and we saw the potential there, but I don't think anybody knew what this man was ultimately going to give and inspire. The marathon movement is synonymous with his vision of what he was, pushing. I guess we go ahead and I guess we got to go ahead and break it back to the beginning.
I think his call got dropped. I'm gonna try to see if he's gonna call back.
Okay, call that drop. We're gonna try to bring it back in the queue. All right.
Yeah. Hold on, I'm gonna try to see this number here. I think it might be from a 203 number. I'm taking a gamble over here.
Okay, 203.
Yeah, this is me. I switched phones.
Okay.
What's up?
It's okay.
Yeah, I had to switch phones because we moving out of the Bronx. And anyway, I wanted to pick up because I was listening to you just a minute ago. No one had any idea in 2009 what Nip Hussle's full potential was to the universe. And that was my first time meeting him also. It was 2009 in the offices of Vibe magazine. He came.
Gotcha. Rob, you there with us?
Really impressed with him. Yeah.
Okay, we hear you. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just impressed by this young man, his whole demeanor, his energy in the room, and then when he pressed play on the mixtape, it was thrilling, because you got to remember 2009, hip hop was in a kind of a ringtone rap moment, if you will, it was like Teach Me How to Dougie and
Soulja
do the stanky
Boys, Scott
and,
Boys, all that.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yes,
and,
Boys, all that. Yeah.
No shade. I don't think Nip would ever down any other rapper's art, but I was very refreshed to hear what he was saying on that Bullets Volume 2 in particular. But the song I remember vividly was when he played the Dre Jackin' for Beats, and he was flowing over Gin and Juice rhythm track. And I mean, you cannot play with a beat like that. You have to know what you're doing, especially to be coming from Los Angeles and speaking about what he was speaking on that track. If you haven't listened to it in a while, I definitely encourage anybody to refresh your soul and listen to that song. That's an exciting record. So I just took him to the side after he played his music, and I said, keep doing what you're doing. I'm really feeling your energy right now. And, he really wanted to be featured in Vibe, and we made that happen. This was shortly before the magazine actually folded. And, frankly, he had a better digital strategy than Vibe did at that moment. So, his thing was just going up as Vibe's, the original Vibe print thing, folded. But, I stayed paying attention over the years, and as you and I both know, and everybody that's tuning in now should understand, Nipsey Hussle just continued to exceed everyone's expectations. I think he exceeded even maybe his own expectations. If you were to check out some of the interviews he did late in his career, he would talk about those early years and how he was still, he was fresh out of kind of post-traumatic stress, of life that he was living at that time. And, the force that he became and the movement that he started, that marathon movement, had not yet been born at that moment. But I felt something in him. And, over the years, as I said, I paid attention. And, when it came time for the Victory Lap, he came to New York City once again. And we had a chance to really chop it in depth. And, it was that conversation that made me realize I had to do something more with this story. It wasn't sufficient to just do like a 5-minute YouTube video, which was what we had planned to do. We spoke for over an hour, and it was a life-changing conversation. I mean, you're a journalist, so certain interviews are more than an interview. It's like
absolutely
a connection. So yeah, man, and I'm just glad that I was able to, speak to so many important people in his life, and people like Cuzzy Capone and Jay Stone and Killer Twan, who were part of that early movement.
We can't forget G.I. Joe either. Shout out to G.I. Joe, man. We can't forget him.
Yeah, we had him on a while back.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was checking out those links that y'all sent me. I mean, you've done some amazing work on your program. I love the fact that you don't just go for the household names. Like you going into the trenches and behind the buildings, as they say, the back of the buildings. So that was like some real great original research that you did in those interviews.
Yes, sir, man. Because those guys right there, we got to look at them as them being the benchmarks, because that's the future right there. And when those guys blow up, then they bring you aboard. That's always been our strategy, and it's also been, we like discovering the diamonds in the rough. Like Jadakiss said it best. There's always a kid better than Jordan that didn't get that break. He said that, and why? And that line stuck to me, because it's like, man, there's potential, so much potential out here. They just ain't get that shine. And that's what keeps us motivated.
It's true. That's right.
Definitely.
That's right. And that's the beauty of hip hop, isn't it? Because there's no barrier to entry. If you can convince someone to pass you the mic, or if you can, get on the turntables and show your skills, or you can, bust a new dance move or whatever. That's the beauty of this culture and this art form. Is like, and that's how Nip recognized, Nipsey Hussle could have done anything. Hermes Ascadome, I should say, his born name, could have been a software engineer. He was someone that built computers by himself from parts.
I told us about that. Yeah.
So people that have that much ability and have no opportunity to express it, it's a very frustrating situation. And that's why I say thank God for hip hop, because Nipsey Hussle understood, or Hermes at that time, he was going by the name Hermes, and then his early rap names included like Concept, and or he would go by E sometimes. But before he even got the name Nipsey Hussle, he recognized that hip hop was a platform that he could take part in, and elevate himself, elevate his family, elevate his whole community. And by God, he did exactly that. So and there's so many more people like that, as you say. So many stories, so many redemption stories that have come out of this amazing culture. And just to share the inspiration of one remarkable person. I was, obviously we just celebrated Nip's birthday. It should have been a celebration that Nip was here to enjoy, on the 15th, just yesterday. And, he could have, and would have and should have turned 36 yesterday. But obviously there's a lot of people keeping his movement going. There's a lot of people that are still discovering his movement, that are still tapping in through the music, the interviews, through my book, The Marathon Don't Stop. There's a lot of points of light that are reflecting his brilliance. And I think that it's important to remember that, this might have been one of the greatest losses in the history of hip-hop. If we really stop and think. I'm not just talking about how many records did he sell or, how many great, accolades he got from the industry, but in terms of the potential to change the world. I think that what Nipsey Hussle was doing was like the ultimate fulfillment of the true purpose of hip-hop. And it's crazy we're having this conversation as I literally drive back from the Bronx. I'm sitting in an Uber talking to you now, riding back from the Bronx. Today I heard The Message performed by Melly Mel. I heard, Kool Mo D. I heard KRS-One. I heard Slick Rick. I had a chance to chop it with KRS for a little while. But, of all these great names that I'm mentioning, I believe what Nip was doing may have been the ultimate fulfillment of hip-hop's true purpose, because he actually reinvested all of the assets from his success into the exact neighborhood that put him on. He didn't stray 1 inch from ground zero, and I don't think that's ever been done before. There's a lot of rags to riches stories and a lot of inspirational tales. Anyone who's followed, let's say, Jay-Z, they know through his rhymes things that he went through to become a billionaire and build the empire that he has built. But have you ever heard of anybody, Jay-Z had built Rockefeller, or Rock Nation rather, Marcy Projects. If the headquarters of Rock Nation was right in the Marcy Projects or right down the block, it was the equivalent of that Nip was doing, and creating so many businesses that even went beyond music-related businesses, just creating opportunities for kids to learn about science and technology and mathematics. I don't think anyone has even thought to do something like that before. And that's why, if they thought of it, they weren't able to execute it to the point that Nipsey Hussle did. And that's why we're sitting here talking about him, and I think people will be talking about him for many, many years to come.
One thing about
and
it,
not to mention,
is go ahead, King.
Yeah, I was going to say, and not to mention that he also set a trend where he charged $100 for a mix for Crenshaw, and had people buying it.
The first one was Crenshaw for $100, and that went so well he came back with mailbox money. That was $1,000 a seed.
Yeah, and one thing about the marketing genius, King and Rob, was when you look at it, because Nips, we really have to kind of break down in the minutia of what this man had accomplished in terms of it, because when we look at the trajectory of a lot of artists, no matter where you're from, whether you look at Master P, originally from New Orleans, moving to Richmond, California, where he opened up No Limit Records, when you look at what, Jay-Z did in terms of coming from Marcy, in terms of how he was doing his thing, when you look at what Biggie did coming out of Bed-Stuy, when you look at what, NWA did coming out of, South Central, when you're dealing with a lot of these guys, it's always about, before you become national, you become local. But then after local, you become regional. And then after that, once you blow. So when you're looking at Nip, he was called Neighborhood Nip for a reason. Because when you look at the way his music was moving, you're looking at how it was so organic. This is what a lot of artists have to understand. It doesn't happen overnight in terms of that success. But when you are putting in the time, the dedication, you have a strategy, a plan to execute the strategy, and ultimately a goal that fulfills the prophecy of self-fulfilling, that what you set for yourself, nothing can stop you along the way. And I mean, when you look at the marketing, it was almost, some would say it was such a audacity of an endeavor. $100 for a mixtape.
Oh yeah.
But by then, Nip had already kind of gotten a name. I mean, of course, the legend grew, which was true. Jay-Z bought 100 copies just because he respected his hustle. Then he follows it up with Mailbox Money, which was actually a free download. But the trick was, if you bought the physical from Nip, you got something personal, whether a pair of shoes, one of his T-shirts, a rhyme notebook, along with the CD. From what I understand, when that CD dropped, he sold 60 copies in 1 hour when Mailbox Money dropped.
Yeah, I think that was the number I heard. And, you know, the funny thing when you're saying about, you know, the marketing genius, quiet as it's kept, Nip's concept has been co-opted by the whole music industry now. So,
absolutely.
You know, with Crenshaw, you know, the $100 tape, you also got access to a VIP special performance that's only for people that supported the Crenshaw, you know, CD. And now that is the way that Justin Bieber and Taylor Swift and all these pop artists market their albums, because people don't really buy albums anymore, right? And you know, that process was happening all during Nip's career. Like the Napster era and the digital downloads were destroying physical sales at that time. And so he had to regroup and come up with a solution. And all the greatest minds in the music industry were trying to solve this problem, but it was only Nip who understood. I have built such a connection to my fan base. I've given them free music. I've got them. I know where they live in the world. I know how much they spend on my merch and everything. So now I'm going to ask them, support this CD. I will give you tickets to a concert. And that's now what Justin Bieber does for his super fans. They get like the VIP bundle, it's called, right? Or some super fan bundle. And that idea comes from Hermes Ascadon, you know? So he was a genius, and the genius is still alive and crackling right now.
Well, genius is always in Iraq, Rob. So, I mean, even before we get further with Nip, we really have to, Rob, you are hip-hop. So it's only right that we have to ask you, in your long, distinguished, and storied career.
KRS-One says, I am hip-hop, and I don't question him. But he did say tonight when I was speaking with him that he once passed the mic to me and called me an MC, and I had almost forgotten that, but it is true. We used to DJ parties in Lower East Side in New York City, a lot of reggae and hip-hop parties, and KRS would come to our jams because there was certain artists that were kind of affiliated with him in our crew at that time, and so he's always been a special person for me, and it was cool. I mean, I just spoke to him for the first time in a while, just about an hour or two ago, and but yeah, I've been blessed to be a part of this culture and to participate in it, even though I'm not born in the South Bronx. You know, I'm a English professor's kid from Southern California. I was born, and you know, I traveled around the world with my dad, who was a professor, right? So our family moved from different parts of the world as I was growing up. But New York became home, and I spent most of my life in NYC. And you know, after the reggae record shop and working at Art and Antiques magazine, you really did your research, because I don't talk about Art and Antiques too much, but that was my first job in publishing, and I got a chance to work there and learn about how to make a magazine, and that was like a great opportunity for me from 87 through when I heard that they were starting Vibe. You know, when I heard that Quincy Jones was going to start a magazine called Vibe, I was like, I have to be part of that. Like,
this was around 1992,
I appreciate what I'm learning,
wasn't it?
Yeah, 92 exactly, because the first issue dropped in September 92, and as soon as I read about it, I was reading a thing called Magazine Week. It's like an industry publication, because I was working, you know, weekends at the reggae record shop, and I was DJing in clubs at night, but my day job was at this art magazine. So, you know, I actually worked my way up to be the editor-in-chief of that magazine in the time I was there. but it wasn't fulfilling my soul. You know, I had to respect my passion, like Nip said on that record he played a while ago. So when I heard that Quincy Jones was doing a music magazine and it was going to be about hip-hop and all the different cultures that connect to hip-hop, I was like, I got to be a part of that. And I know they're not going to do reggae and dancehall justice, and that's important to me. And so I pitched them a story on Supercat, if you remember the Don Dada. Enough respect to the Don Dada.
Yes, the the Bad Boy remix. Yeah.
All of that. And this is before the Bad Boy remix. This is before even the Don Dada album was just about to drop at that time. And anyway, they gave me the opportunity to write that first joint, and it appeared in that first issue, September 92, which has Tretch on the cover. If anybody has that in their collection, hang on to it because it is a rare collectible at this point. But and after that was the test for Vibe, and 1 year later they got the green light from Time Inc. Ventures and went into production, and they asked me if I wanted to be down and get a job. I said yes, and I became, I didn't have to think about it twice, man. I became a lifelong Vibe editor. I was there for the whole run. I'm the only editor that started from the startup and actually made it 17 years until the magazine folded and we got marched out of their asset. Yeah. So I mean, Rob is still going. Shout out to but anyway, go ahead. What you say?
No, just saying, man. But I'm like, Rob. I mean, but when you look at some of the stuff that was going on during that time, I mean, of course, people got to understand this, dude. You were there from the very beginning to the end, so you saw everything from the Death Row, the Death Row issue, that the Bad Boy issue, all of that. I mean, the Bad Boy. What was it? Two things. We got to know this because you were there during New York during the early '90s. What was the scene in hip hop like during that time? And what did you find out once you got into magazine editorship in terms of just how the stories were written, interviewing the people, everything that goes along with it, even just how sometimes the writers can get blamed for stuff jumping off?
Well, it's a really good question that you're asking. I think, as I was just speaking with KRS-One backstage, I asked him because, we were in the Bronx and it's a celebration of like the culture of hip hop. And I said, KRS, they're talking about 50th anniversary of hip hop in a couple of years from now. And you said, I am hip hop. So how is hip hop doing? I said, is hip hop healthy? How is the culture of hip hop doing? He's like, hip hop is amazing. Hip hop is doing great. Rap music, however, is another conversation,
Right.
And he draws that distinction. And he burns out all the commercial networks and radio stations because he thinks that is polluting the legacy of hip hop. And I wouldn't argue with him. I mean, I'm willing to listen to any, record at least once, right? I'm willing to give a listening ear. But I mean, there was a time when the concept of like selling out was a bad, there was a big ethos about don't be a sellout. Don't sell your soul. Don't be a sellout. And it reached a point where, by the mid-'90s, there's so much money. Music videos were being shot for $2 million budgets,
Yeah.
People were, like, purchasing, $2,000 bottles of cognac by the case just to have in the snack bar at the music video shoot. You know what I mean? Like, it reached a level where it was a whole different animal. And I think that, for me, I got into it out of a love of expression and the freedom and the audacity and the speaking truth to power and all that stuff. And at a certain point, when you're beholden to too many corporate sponsors and too many powers that be, eventually it's inevitable. They're going to call in their favors from you. Bob Marley said, never make a politician grant you a favor, because they will always want to control you forever. And, everybody got their bag in the 90s, but then we saw the tragedy that unfolded, and And, you know, I've written about the part that the media played in it. I mean, I remember, I mean, Biggie was coming out of a party. He was in the Vibe party, you know, the night that they shot him.
He was killed.
You know.
Yeah,
he came out of our party.
Yeah, that was the situation.
And, you know,
Shaq had told him not to come because, of course, of what happened, because of course, with Tupac being killed 6 months earlier, and Shaq had said he had, you know, because this was something that Big felt like for the album, you know, they felt like they needed, well, Puff primarily felt like they needed to come out there and represent it. And Shaq had told Big explicitly, like, dude, it's not safe. He's like, just come to my house.
Mm-hmm.
I got everything for you. I got, you know, whatever you want, but please don't go. But, you know, Big went. You know, we interviewed Tash. Shout out to Tash from Alcoholics. We interviewed him a couple of years ago. He told us about, because I believe he was there that night as well that happened. And it was just, man. It was a dark.
I mean, but when I talk about these times are very, you know, and, you know, I'm still here and giving thanks for life. And, you know, I keep in touch with, you know, Tupac's close circle as well as Big's close circle, just because, you know, we love both those young men and we love their legacies. And that was the thing that, you know, KRS was saying tonight. I keep coming back to KRS, but this conversation is fresh in my mind. He said, you know, is when rap music starts to put people in categories and say, you're East Coast, you're West Coast, you're old school, you're gangster, you're, you know, and it's like, that is the separation that comes in, you know, like KRS-One is the blast master, one of the most fierce, but he's also the one that made a record that said, stop the violence in hip-hop, you know, because the art form is supposed to release those energies, you know, and you know, if you think about it, you never heard Big really get back at Tupac, you know, like Hit 'Em Up was a brutal record, like, you can't deny it's one of the most scathing diss records ever recorded in the history of this culture.
King, tell Rob what the first time y'all heard it back in the day. King, tell that story about when you first heard that.
Hit 'Em Up?
Literally,
Hit 'Em Up. I literally was sitting in my office at Vibe, and Bones Malone, I think, brought it in and played it for me, and I was like, man, this is gonna be some shit. I was concerned, to be honest with you, because I said, you know, it wasn't just a you know, I mean, everybody knows the lyrics. It's on websites, you know, but like he was talking about the label staff. He was talking about the man's wife. Yeah. It was a lot of levels to that record. And, you know, we were in the heart of it. I mean, we had done a Next on Biggie when he was a new artist. You know, that was the thing.
Right.
Nipsey wanted to be in our next section. The next section was where we would do like a page on a new upcoming talent on the Verge. So Nas had a Next, Mary J. Blige had a Next, Outkast was a Next. You know, these were the artists that were breaking in the early 90s in the pages of Vibe. And, you know, Nip wanted to be a Next also, and he got one of those last issues. He was in that section, you know, in one of the last print editions of Vibe. But yeah, like to see, you know, someone that, you know, Biggie literally came from the ground up, and we saw his whole growth, his whole movement, and to see him come out of our party and lose his life that way is something that I'll never get over, to be honest with you. And, you know, Cheo Hodari Coker and I, we collabed on the book Unbelievable, The Life, Death, and Afterlife of the Notorious B.I.G., which was the biography that Vibe published,
which would also
on him.
be
and that was
the template. That'd be the template for the movie Notorious, correct?
Exactly. And Cheo co-wrote the screenplay for Notorious. And, they optioned the book. And, you know, the studio optioned the book. And then Cheo is now, you know, a big Hollywood screenwriter. Like, that's what he does. He did all the Luke Cage. You know, he was the writer and showrunner of Luke Cage on Netflix, and has done a lot of other amazing projects. He's at Amazon now, I believe. But yeah, it's, you know, telling these stories is something that we don't just do as a business move. You know, we do it because we care about these stories being told correctly, and, you know, that the truth needs to be on the record, because there's so much misinformation, especially now. I mean, it's like journalism. What is music journalism now? You know, it's all retweet and cut and paste, and, you know, the record label sends out a statement and everybody's like rushing who can be the first to copy it and regurgitate it, you know. So it's actually kind of a travesty, to be honest with you. There's very few actual journalists doing journalism, and that's why I have to salute. I had to say, like, off the cuff, y'all talking to real people and doing like primary research with people that actually touched the culture instead of getting it from, I mean, Nipsey Hussle said, fuck the middleman, right? I can say that off the cuff, right?
Yes, you can. Whatever you feel.
I can curse. Okay, cool. Yeah, and,
no sense,
and I want to say, too,
here.
Hey, I was going to ask you this, though. I was going to ask this from journalist to journalist, man. Because we've been through this as well. I mean, in your career of doing journalism, you know, covering the culture, have you ever dealt with artists that was in their feelings about something that you write, or they weren't feeling a review, and they, like, caught feelings?
Oh, all the time. I mean, not all the time, but it's definitely something that any real journalist has experienced, because we don't do this to make friends, you know. We don't do this to get backstage passes and free bottles, and you know what I mean? Like, you got to tell the truth. And it's something called tough love. Like, you know, the opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference. You know, so if you care about an artist and they're not doing their best, you have to tell them. And if you tell them in print, it can hurt their sales and stuff, but, you know, you do have to tell the truth. So I've definitely had those experiences. I've had friends that were, you know, physically assaulted in our office. Like, you know, shout out to Jesse Washington. You know, he had a real serious injury from someone that was, you know, mad at something he wrote, and, you know, it happens, man. It's a part of the job, but, you know, I think the people that, the real greats, I think they understand that, you know, if you're doing it for the right reason and you're actually trying to uplift the culture, it's not going to be, you know, any need for that, you know. But yeah, of course, people care about this stuff, and you know, there is a certain part of the media that exploits things and whips shit up and tries to get clicks. Especially now, the internet is all clickbait, they call it, you know. I mean, there's a funny story actually. One of the moments that I kind of crossed paths with Nip, I was not. It's complicated, but basically, do you remember when he tweeted "fuck Complex"? Yeah, it was kind of a legendary tweet. Yeah. So what happened was, Complex was one of the first major websites that was supporting him, and then they kind of took a turn where they started getting a little snarky with the lists. And I was working there at the time, actually. I had been music editor. After Vibe folded, 2009, I was at BET, and then I was at Complex. I was a music editor. And I was keeping it thorough, you know, but then I ended up changing my role, and I was doing more special projects and stuff. But in that time, when I was still with Complex, they had done a list called, like, the top underachieving rappers, right? It was basically their way of, you know, kind of poking fun, like, why hasn't these people dropped a record in a while? You know, we like them, but we haven't heard anything from them. And it was people like, who was that guy? Lost in the Bread Aisle. What was There was a few.
Asher Roth.
Yeah, Asher Roth was on there. The Sonic the Hedgehog dude. That always wore pink outfits.
Charles Hamilton.
Charles Hamilton. It was cats like that, right? Yeah. So there was people that they were like, why haven't they dropped in a while? You know. And Nip was included on that list. And he didn't say anything, but he was not happy to be on the list. And then
I can imagine he was
it so happened. Yeah. There's a difference between Asher Roth and Nipsey Hussle, right? There's a difference. Like, this is no shade on Asher Roth or Charles Hamilton, but there's a big difference in what Nipsey Hussle was working on at that time. This was 2012. So he had stepped away from Epic Records situation, stepped away from the management situation that went with that major label deal, started his marathon movement, took all of the repercussions that might come with something like that, with those bold moves, going 100% indie, dealing with real street shit. And so, he didn't drop for a while because there was real things he had to take care of. So he was like, okay, so Complex dissed me after I, have given them big interviews in the past and whatever. But then the funny thing was he was just about to drop the Crenshaw project, and no one knew it. So as soon as that came out, Jay bought the records, bought the 100 CDs. Suddenly the whole industry is on his dick, right? Everybody's like, oh, my God, Nipsey Hussle.
Everybody jumped the bandwagon.
Exactly.
Right.
So somebody at Complex, actually a cool guy that I know, Angel Diaz, who is a Nip fan and did not know about the list, because Complex is a big company. There's a lot of people that work there. So he emails Nip's management saying, I'm a big fan, and would you do an interview for Complex? We'd love to talk about the Crenshaw project. And that's when Nip was like, oh, hell no, because you all just dissed me on this list, a few weeks back, and now you're emailing me that you're a big fan. And he just, bear in mind, he sold $100,000 worth of CDs in one night, so he's kind of feeling himself. So he tweets, fuck Complex, 10 racks for an interview, or stop emailing my management, So obviously that was like a 10-alarm fire in the Complex office. Like, big rappers is dissing you on Twitter. That's a big deal for the brand, for a digital brand. And so the little meeting was held, and my contribution to that conversation was to say, just let him talk his shit. Like, reach out to the right people, speak to the people that can talk to him that he trusts. I think Karen Civil actually is the one that brokered this conversation and said, look, Nip, we didn't mean anything bad by this. Let's have this conversation. So anyway, Angel Diaz did get to do the interview, and if you Google Nipsey Hussle Complex, it's the first thing that comes up. He was so pissed off for the whole interview, you could tell. It's like different from most of his interviews because he's usually very on message, very focused. He's still on message, but he doesn't hold back his anger. Like, he usually doesn't show as much emotion in interviews. He was very strategic in his communication with the press. But this one interview, if you go back and check it out, that Fuck Complex interview was kind of a low-key classic because he was saying, like, there's a difference between these other rappers and what I do. And it's the same message that he put out on his first single of Victory Lab, which was a record that he had in the stash for years. He knew this was going to be my first single. He didn't care what was hot on radio, what was banging in the club. He's like, my first statement on my first album, when I finally do my deal with a major on my terms, owning everything and doing it, without getting punked by the industry, I'm going to say, I ain't nothing like you fucking rap ends, So that was his basic point, even from the time he did the Complex interview. Like, don't confuse me with people that are just in the rap industry. Like, he was doing something different. And I have to say, we talked about fuck the middleman. It's a very powerful philosophy. And one of the things
Because we get
one of the things real quick.
Another thing to talk about too. Go ahead. Because we got another thing we got to touch on too.
But
Go ahead.
I can't leave this out. One of the most important things in my book, The Marathon Don't Stop, is that for the first time you get to understand where Nip got that idea from. And there's an important person in his journey who's never been heard from before named Dexter Brown. And if you've read the book, you will be familiar with him. But basically, Dexter Brown is a part of the story that's been left out because he was before Nipsey Hussle was even named Nipsey Hussle. He had been asked to leave high school because some parts from computers were going missing at the school. He was accused of being the person that took those parts. And so when he left school, his mom didn't want him staying at home anymore. It was a whole fallout that happened. And Dexter Brown just happened to be this cool person from Trinidad. He's a photographer, he's an engineer, really smart guy. Took young Nip in and basically gave him access to studio equipment and other guys from the neighborhood like Cuzzy Capone and Rallo Styles that produced joints even on Victory Lap. So basically, Dexter is the one that came up with that phrase, fuck the middleman. Dexter is the one that first took Nip to a major label and said, if you really want to mess with a label, I know people, I can take you there, but it's not going to go well. I can just tell you, like, they're not about what you're about. And sure enough, it was a crazy, the story's in the book. But anyway, I just want to shout out Dexter Brown because
it's okay.
His contribution.
No, it's
very
important because this is also a perfect segue that we're going to get to about the recent situation with De La Soul, and because you covered them as well, and about how they recently, just about and how they recently just they finally won after all those years that fight with Tommy Boy to get their to finally get their the masters, the intellectual property, the masters of their music back. Before we get to that, one thing about Nip, because one thing about it is when we think about it, Nip encompassed so much, but a lot of people, and this is the one thing we simultaneously love and hate about it in terms of his legacy, because a lot of people try to get on him after his death and say that they were fans from day one, and I'm like, okay, what was one of the joints? What was one of the joints back in 2012 that he did? It was one of the hottest joints in the hood before everybody knew about him. And you know where I'm going with this. It's a joint he did with YG off of Just Read Up 2, You Broke. Oh, my God. That is like one of my favorites.
Yeah, that bitch You Broke. Oh, yeah.
Oh, God. Nip showed out on that. And I was like, so this is like, I mean, there's so much stuff Nip was doing before he got to where he was then. And, it's like with Tupac, everybody wants to say they're a Tupac fan but can't name any songs off of his first, album, Tupacalypse Now.
Right, exactly.
So
they don't remember even the same song with Digital Underground and all all these joints.
I mean, even getting,
it's true.
Getting further. Yeah, even getting further than he was.
They came around after the Death Row days.
Yeah,
exactly.
They
bought the T-shirt, right?
Yeah, but
they
one
bought
thing
the
about
T-shirt.
it is but one thing about it, when you look at it, because we can't let you go, now that we kick you off, because we still got a little time left, but we can't let you go without talking about the Daylock, because we got to get to that next. But one thing about it with Nip, sometimes those superlatives of legendary and innovative and creative get thrown around loosely, and they lose their merit and their But Nip was indeed legendary, although we really didn't get to see the total bloom of his genius until later on. What makes Nip so resonant and relevant, even with the short time that the casual public knew about him? Because for the underground heads, we knew about him forever. What made Nip so legendary in terms of his impact on the culture and on how artists do business?
Well, we already touched on the whole proud to pay concept and the way that he cracked the code of how to extract value from the relationship that, an underground artist has with his fan base, and that, he could figure out a way to, move those Crenshaw CDs for $100 a physical copy and reward his fans with a concert that no one else could attend. Like, that was a brilliant concept. But, fast forward through all the different things that, he did as a businessman, like the Marathon Clothing Smart Store. They had augmented reality hang tags on the T-shirts. You would use, download the Marathon app, and you could watch exclusive video content just by having that T-shirt. It's like the NBA hadn't done that yet, but he found a young African digital software engineer named Idris Sandu. Follow him on Instagram, and you can see some of the things. Before NFTs were being talked about, him and Idris, Nipsey and Idris were cooking NFT concepts, cryptocurrency, which is all the rage now. Everybody, Nas became a Bitcoin billionaire and all this, it's like Nip was on that so early, super early. So all these things that have become very, embraced by the mainstream of hip-hop now, Nip was at the very forefront of all that stuff. It's very important to remember that. And then let's not forget also, there have been rappers that rapped about Buy Back the Block. Rick Ross actually made a record where, Nip did a verse on the remix of Buy Back the Block, because he did it. He actually bought the strip mall at Slauson and Crenshaw where he and his brother used to sell T-shirts. He would sell CDs.
Shout out Black
he
Sam.
ended up owning
Shout out Black Sam.
Sam. They just sold out the latest Marathon Clothing Puma collab this past weekend, the Miami story. But, there's a play that's unfolding right now. A lot of people might not be aware, but the business partner, Black Sam and Nipsey, who helped them, get the financing together to purchase the strip mall at Slauson and Crenshaw, is a gentleman by the name of David A. Gross, and he has continued the marathon to a level that people may not even be aware. But he just went public last week with the fact that he has gathered together a community crowdsourced fund. So residents of South Los Angeles can invest for as little as $1,000 into this fund called Own Our Own. And actually anyone can invest in it. So if you follow them on Instagram, if you want to be part of the positive moves that Nipsey's business partner is doing, check out Own Our Own. And they are making a play right now to buy the Baldwin Hills Crenshaw Mall, which is like the biggest asset.
That's huge.
It's the biggest asset in the last black neighborhood in LA. And, David Gross has the connections to get crazy funding from the finance world. He's got a development partner that is willing to really do the mall the right way. If you've been to Crenshaw Mall, that's where like Magic Johnson Theater is located, and there's a big mural of Nipsey on the wall. It's a part of the community that Nip came up in, and for Nip's business partner to not only be able to purchase that and curate it to be more in tune with the interests of the community, and also to let the whole community invest for as little as $1,000 per person in that play, it's like taking his whole legacy to another level. Now, from the latest I heard, even though their bid was like by far the best bid, it was not accepted, and they're trying to do some funny business behind the scenes. When I say they, I mean the owners of the mall, whatever powers that be, decide who gets to purchase this valuable asset. But I have a feeling in time it will go to Own Our Own, and I just, want everybody listening to pay attention to that story because it's very important. It's playing out right now as we speak.
Me and you are going to have to chop it off after
we're definitely going to be alert about
we
that.
Get off the air. Yeah, we're going to have to chop it off.
Oh, so Dayla.
After we, because you and me about that thing, because I have to talk to you about that off the air about a situation out there in California, because I have a friend that stays out there, Rob, and there's some stuff he talked to me about that you and me need to discuss off the air about that, because he kind of echoes the same sentiments that you have. Now let's get to Daylon.
Yes.
So
De La Soul,
Musketeers.
They to me are one of the greatest groups ever in hip hop, and so underrated because their music has not been available to the streaming generation. You know, if you didn't buy the vinyl and the cassette, or the CD, you could go find it on YouTube, but you're not really hearing it on the radio now very much. You don't hear a lot of De La Soul
on eBay and pay an arm and a leg.
That too, right. So, finally it's coming to streaming. The announcement was just made very recently, and it really, credit has to go to Faith Newman, who's the A&R that signed Nas to do the Illmatic record.
Columbia. Back in the day.
Yeah, but she's now at a company called, what is it called again? I don't want to say it wrong, but Faith Newman is part of a publishing company now that basically broke the stalemate between Tommy Boy and De La. But what was so cool was that, Tommy Boy tried to put De La out on streaming platforms a couple of years ago, and I think Tidal was one of the first. Like Jay-Z's streaming platform Tidal was like, no, we're not going to, you're not, if De La Soul is not getting a fair share of the money from this streaming catalog, we're not putting it on our platform. And pretty soon the other streaming services followed suit. There was so much strong pushback from hip-hop on social media. Artists like Nas and many others stepped up and said, hell no, that doesn't make sense. And, so De La Soul has so much love that they were able to, kind of like break the trend. So many artists have been exploited by this industry, and that's why Nipsey and Dexter Brown told Nipsey, fuck the middleman. He said, don't go to Interscope and have that meeting. Don't go to, these labels because they're not really in your best interest. And, De La Soul made this brilliant, mind-blowing, culture-shaping catalog from 3 Feet High and Rising, De La Soul is Dead, Balloon Mind State.
Stakes is high.
I mean,
artificial
all
intelligence.
The stakes is high. People like Prince Paul and Jay Dilla, the first Most Def record, you heard on a De La record. So it's like all these things that De La did for the culture. And, I made a film called De La Soul is Not Dead, which was done for Mass Appeal. I directed that. But that was like before all the mess with Tommy Boy. But I do interview Tom Silverman in that documentary, and he talks about the lawsuit that they got into over a tiny sample on the first album. There was a little bug-out track called Transmitting Live from Mars, and on there they had like a tiny sample that was slowed down from a obscure British rock band called the Turtles. And we have in the documentary. You can actually see
that was a buzzsaw. That's because D Nice also used the buzzsaw Turtles for My Name Is D Nice as well, I believe. So this is the same group, I think.
The Turtles, yeah, and I don't know if he got in trouble for that, but they didn't clear that sample apparently, according to Tom Silverman, and because they had forgotten it was on the record or something, and that led to a big expensive lawsuit. And I think those types of sample clearance issues had something to do with how Tommy Boy basically kind of made an excuse to not, pay them what they should have been paid. And there was a very bad breakdown of communication between De La and the label. And, eventually, another party had to step in and change it up. And shout out to Faith Newman and them, because I can't wait for the world to rediscover De La Soul. This whole streaming generation is in for a big treat, And somebody was tweeting, what's the first song of De La you're going to stream when you get a chance to stream their music? I mean, I don't know. For me, I thought about it, and I think I have to stream the Buddy remix. That's going to be the first one that I put on.
It's between that or the break of dawn or the breakdown where they sampled the Off the Wall joint. It got to be one of them.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one. There's too many, But I mean, the thing is with me, I do have my vinyls, so I still play. Yeah, you still got the collection, right? So you can play the sample. You can play the record on your turntable, but most people don't go to that much effort to experience music now. They're just on their playlist vibe. So, You know, that
right.
generation of listeners is in for a big treat when they get into this De La Soul catalog, you know.
Not to mention, they was ahead of their time in terms of talking about the direction of where hip hop was going, with the stakes is high. I remember they made a lot of people mad with that record.
100%. Yep. I think Tupac's beef with them is well documented, and Biggie caught some feelings behind that as well. You know, it was they were speaking the truth. Is what I said before. You know, when you bring that tough love, you know, hip hop is a self-correcting system, and you know, when things get out of balance, you know, real hip hop has a way of correcting itself, you know, but you know, like bringing it back to Nip, like the situation De La got in is something that Nip learned from, you know, and he learned from all the other people that have been jerked over the years, and people like Master P, you know, was a big advisor to Nipsey. Master P, I interviewed him for the book, The Marathon Don't Stop, and he said that, you know, Nip had him read all his contracts. Like, he would actually show the contract to Master P and ask for advice, you know, like that was how much he respected P. And the example he said, or people like E40, you know, with the, you know, Sick With It movement in the Bay, you know, like it's those self-made moguls that really, you know, Nip wanted to emulate. And Jay Prince, the Rap-A-Lot dynasty, you know, these are the people that inspired him. And, of course, Jay-Z, who he ended up doing business with, you know, Roc Nation was managing Nip. It's crazy to think, like, he was just on the verge with the Victory Lap album. He was about to start touring, like, stadiums. Like, he was going to do that thing just at that moment, you know, this tragedy took place. And it's, you know, it's about more than showbiz. It's about more than concert tours and everything, but it's still as a lover of the art form, you just would love to imagine Nip enjoying those moments, because all he wanted so bad his whole life was to be, you know, a great rapper, and he became that, you know. But I wish he was able to enjoy it for longer, and you know, that we could have all gone on that ride with him. But you know, it's a sad story, but you know.
Yeah, but look at who he influenced along the way, and it's bittersweet because we think about all the collaborations that possibly could have happened. You know, him and Kendrick, you know, him and Nas, you know, you know, you know, him and Jay, of course. They did they got a song together for the, you know, for the Fred Hampton
what
movie,
it feels
but
like.
it wasn't. Exactly. But it was just, you know, kind of like those vocals, you know, from you know, outtakes from Nip, you know. But it's like, one thing about
the Kendrick did happen. Kendrick's on the Victory Lap album on Dedication, you know, so that one did happen. But yeah, there's a lot more work that could have, would have, and should have been done.
It makes you wonder what could have happened in terms of him and Kendrick doing more. You know, when you think about it, Rob, because you know, we got to touch on some certain elements because of what you talked about in terms of De La's catalog. Also about, you know, the magazine, because all this ties together in terms of actual physical copies, in terms of digital journalism and, you know, print journalism and digital music and physical copies of CDs. King and myself, as long as we have been doing this show, we have absolutely implored, we have preached, we can't stress the importance enough of people really understanding how to have those physical copies in your hands, because, you know, what is your opinion in terms of the automation of hip-hop from a perspective of where some would say it facilitates efficiency, but it also exterminates the essence of people actually getting to really be intimate with the album in terms of reading the liner notes, the lyrics, productions, everything, you know, everything from the producers to the shout-outs.
Well, even if you think about, like, if you have the cassette advance of Ready to Die, there's certain stuff on the cassette that's different than the album version. You know, there's certain records on Snoop's debut that were slightly changed. There's records that got taken off the Chronic, you know, so like if you were one of the people that had that cassette advance or had that test pressing or had, take it to dancehall and reggae, if you have the dub plate, if you have the one original cut from the studio, like, you have something that can never go away. But, like, look at how many times Kanye West has changed the release date of Donda, and look how many times, like, when he was doing even The Life of Pablo, like, they changed that album after it was uploaded. Like, it was on Apple, and then the track listing changed, and so it's like, it becomes almost like Wikipedia, like, you can't trust Wikipedia.
Anybody can,
and
right.
Everybody goes to Wikipedia now. They Google something and they click on the wiki thing. Like, who was Nipsey Hussle? Click on his Wikipedia. But, like, people can go in and, like, mess with your Wikipedia and put false information and inaccurate links. And, it's all, like, crowdsourced. But, like, if you want to change history, you can tamper with it. But if you have the physical copy of the De La Soul album, no one can ever say, like, oh, the streaming rights have been revoked and you can't listen to it now, So, yeah, I have mad crates of records and boxes of cassettes and, too much music, man. I love this stuff, But yeah, the concept even of, like, MP3s never excited me that much. It was cool when I went to DJ and I didn't have to carry my crates, because one time I got jacked for, like, 3 crates of records coming back from a show in Brownsville, man. We lost a lot of records that night, but, so that part is cool, but like, the digital music doesn't thrill me. It doesn't sound the same either, does it? I mean, you can actually feel when you're in a club on a big system, and when that needle drops in the groove, even before the music starts to play, you can feel the vinyl. Like, you can just feel it in your chest, So that's what I know of as, like, the experience of listening to music. So, and I think that's that drug is just addictive, man. Hip hop is a habit forming habit, man. It just, it sticks with you. And, I don't know, man. We took it from the Bronx. I made it all the way to Manhattan now. I know we've been talking for a minute. What is our cutoff? Are we over an hour already? I know we could go for a while, but
yeah, we can go for a while. We usually close up shop at 11, so we got plenty of time. So
okay,
please,
okay,
you can. I mean, if you can stay, please stay.
Yeah, I got a few more minutes.
Okay,
but go ahead. What were you thinking?
Yeah, but one thing about it in terms of the sound, because when you talk about how the sound in terms of hitting the vinyl, Rob, there are 2 people who, to me, really, really, from the West Coast, we're going to get him on the show, Dan, in one way or the other. E-A-Ski, because he still believes in doing the analog. Shout out to the Bay Area legend, producer E-A-Ski, and, of course, Griselda, of course, with B. Butcher, Derringer, as producers, of course. I mean, these guys, Westside Gun, Conway the Machine and Benny the Butcher, Armani Caesar, Class Murder, 38 Splash, because they're all part of that collective. I mean, but when you listen to their sound, it's like they really, and, of course, the stuff is true, but, I mean, when you listen to it, their sound is really taking it back to that 90s era. They really, it's the authenticness, the grittiness, the epitome of what the hardcore aesthetic of what I think New York hip-hop is. And, of course, on the Bay Area side with EAC, because he's still doing stuff out there. I mean, the stuff he did working with the front line, of course, with Locksmith and Left. I mean, the joint he did with Ice Cube. I mean, these are people who are still carrying on tradition and really, I think, are ambassadors and representatives of the culture, being pragmatic in its progression today. I mean, one thing about it, Rob.
Yeah, sorry for interrupting. What I missed out on? I had to charge my laptop up, man. What I missed out on?
Oh no, we were just talking about, in terms of daylight, in terms of, just the streaming and how, people are going to be able to, really enjoy it in terms of a new generation. I mean, just about, how it sounds in terms of the digital era, how the music doesn't sound the same on digital as opposed to, that vinyl, that analog,
very important. It's very important because see, you notice how a lot of mainstream media is catering the 90s and 90s hip hop is catering to the glory era. Right?
Yeah.
If you look at a lot of these Netflix specials they have going on, it's catering to the 90s era and the 80s era.
Yep. That's real.
So,
but think about the fact that
so have a Daylight getting
their
catalog reintroduced. That's going to open up some doors right there.
100%. But I love this moment we're in right now because I don't know this week, but last week Nas had the #1 album, right? Nas with Hit Boy, and I mean that King Disease 2 it's an amazing record. And then you saw the Locks, and Jadakiss just dominating the internet with that versus battle and everything. That was a cool moment. It felt like, the culture is starting to reawaken in the mainstream sense. I mean, the culture never went away, but like the mainstream is definitely recognizing it. But I don't know, as cool as it is to stream the Daylight catalog, I hope people will maybe cop some vinyl and, get a turntable somewhere from their uncle, or if they can find it on eBay or wherever, and actually experience what it feels like. But it's different. Like in a club, like DJs don't play on vinyl very often. So you don't get that punch in the chest like it used to be. Like how could DJ Premier exist without scratching those records on turntables? Like that's the essence for me. So. That's the shit that I fell in love with, and, I will always defend it without apology.
Yeah, and that's something that, it's always just about really, represented in the right way, man. I mean, when you look at it in terms of the game, because obviously it's changed so much with the rights, in terms of what do artists have to understand, and, from your experience in journalism, and of course, director, producer, in terms of film, in terms of trademarks, all of that intellectual property. What do artists have to understand in terms of maintaining their rights and making sure that everything is done, as we say, keeping it Jewish? What do artists have to understand?
I mean, I think you could do well by just following Nipsey Hussle's example. He turned down more deals than he accepted, and he understood that, owning his intellectual property, owning his masters, and being able to earn from them long term is more important than getting, a check or a quick payday, because it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And, after the limelight dies down, let's say you are one of the few rappers, because everybody and his brother wants to rap, right? And that's been the case for a long time, but even more so today when there's very few barriers to entry. Like you can just upload a track to SoundCloud, you can put a TikTok up, and you might have a hot record, and you might have a dance craze pop off, and all of a sudden, whoa, but if you are one of those fortunate people that gets in that situation, there's going to be a few really good years, and then something else is going to come along, and while that spotlight is shining on you, make sure that you are diversifying your portfolio, make sure you are owning your intellectual property, make sure you don't sign any, reckless deals with people that don't really have your best interests at heart. Keep your circle and your team small, and really study Nipsey Hussle. That's probably the simplest way I can put it. Like, really pay attention to the moves he made, and more importantly, the ones he didn't make. The deals he did not go chasing. There was a time when Rick Ross wanted to sign him to Maybach Music Group. They were the hottest rap label in the world at that moment, and he had tremendous respect for Ross, and Ross obviously did for Nip because he wanted to put him down with the MMG, but the terms just weren't right. And, you know, when you're signing through another artist, like the label,
right.
There's certain things that you're not able to own if you're, you know, going through those traditional structures. And, you know, it's a difficult decision for Nip to make at that time. But, you know, he did so with the utmost respect to Rick Ross. And, you know, I spoke with Ross for the book, and he spoke about how much he respected Nip's decision, you know, as much as he didn't like it because he really wanted Nip down with MMG, but he understood that he was going after a principle of ownership, and he wasn't going to compromise that for anybody. And he had made a commitment to his team. He had a small team, including obviously his brother and, you know, his cousin, and, you know, like a close circle of people that, you know, he wasn't going to switch up on, because the hottest rap label in the game wanted him to get down with the MMG and give him that MMG pendant and all that. You know, he had an All Money In pendant, and that's what he was gonna, you know, rep. And,
right, that's what he was gonna rock. Yeah.
And so, you know, these are the decisions that you have to make, and it's a tough one, because at that time, I'm sure he would have loved to, you know, stun on the industry and come out on some crazy remix with Drake and Rick Ross or whatever, but, you know, he took, as he said in my last interview with him, you know, we didn't take the elevator, we took the stairs, you know, and it takes patience and fortitude. And go back and play that Respect Your Passion record again, you know, make $1 million before you flatline, and make a master plan and watch it backfire, burn it all down and collect the ashes. You know, this is the process, you know. If you respect your passion, you follow it wherever it leads, whether it's a bumpy road, curvy road, you know, just keep going. And, yeah, it's a marathon, not a sprint. I think that's the essence. I mean, Nip gave us so many jewels that, you know, we can hold on to, and I think that's why we're still talking about them to this day. Listen, Off the Cuff Radio, it has been one of the best interviews that I've done for this whole book. The Marathon Don't Stop,
wow.
The Life and Times of Nipsey Hussle. This is Rob Kenner. I appreciate you so much. I'm going to have to wrap this up because I got a deadline for tomorrow. I got to write up this KRS-One and Slick Rick show that I just went to in the Bronx. But listen, gentlemen, keep doing what you're doing. It's important. Please send me the link that I can share on social. And if you haven't checked out the book, if you're listening to this interview, you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Robert J. Kenner. The link is in my bio. You can, you know, order the book, the e-book, the audio book, and check out the interviews and some of the films we've been talking about. De La Soul is Not Dead. Link is on there. Skip Marley documentary we did for Boom Shots is on there, and a few other cool things. But, you know, like my Good Morning America interview that lasted 2 minutes, but I spent an hour and a half with Off the Cuff Radio. So enough respect, and thank you for doing what you do.
Thank you. And Rob,
Appreciate
check your DM, because I sent you something, and I'll chop it up with you on the DM, and also too.
Okay.
Yeah, man. I mean, we thank you, and any book, you know what? If you want to look, we're here for an interview for the next book you write. If you want to talk about journalism,
I appreciate
whatever,
it.
you know how to reach us.
I got some stuff in the works. And shout out to
man.
Kevin Powell, by the way. When we were talking about all the 90s, you know, the Death Row cover, Kevin Powell wrote that. He did the Tupac exclusive from Rikers and a lot of other memorable stuff. He did the Tretch cover story on the first issue of Vibe. He did the first Snoop cover. Kevin Powell is one of the, you know, great writers I had a chance to work with over the years at Vibe. And me and him have something in the works that's coming you'll be hearing about sooner than later. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah, from the Real World back in the day.
Yeah, exactly. That's Kevin, man. And him and Tupac had a special kind of, you know, connection journalistically that, you know, during one of their first conversations, he said, I would like you to be Alex Haley to my Malcolm X, you know. And so they, you know, he did a lot of big stories on Pac and many other people. But, yeah, just keep your eyes open, your ears open. Some things are coming soon. So big respect to Off the Cuff Radio, and I gotta cut, but looking forward to the link so we can share this, man. I want to listen back. This is a dope interview.
Appreciate you, man. I'll send it to you. God bless, and do what you gotta do, and we'll be in touch with you, man. Thanks again.
Okay. All right. Peace.
Peace.
All right. Hold it down, man.
All right. On that note, we're out.
Oh, stuff.